The Bears' pass rush blew up before it even got rolling. One elite edge rusher slipped away, but another one already asked out and could land here. On top of that, CBS Sports has the Bears taking a national champ wideout in the first round. And we need to break down what that would mean for Caleb Williams. And to wrap it up, an all-pro on special teams just packed up and left town for another squad. 3 stories, 3 bombs, all in this one. Hit subscribe right now and drop a like because this is just getting started. News 1, I am getting straight to it because this cannot wait. The topic that has Bears fans going in circles on social media for days is the pass rush. And I have to keep it real with you because that is what happens here. The Max Crosby situation was one of the most frustrating moments of this whole offseason for Chicago fans. A player at that level, one of the best defensive ends in the entire NFL, wanted to come to the Bears. That is not made up. Crosby said it. Crosby wanted to play in Chicago, and even then, the deal never got done. Now think about this for a second and really sit with it. When a player of that caliber says that this is the city where there is a desire to play, when history says that move makes sense strategically, financially, and competitively, and the organization still cannot close it, what message does that send to the rest of the league? It feels like a mixed signal, a signal Ryan Poles is going to have to clear up pretty fast. Here's the full context. On March 6th, the word all over the media was that the Las Vegas Raiders had agreed to ship Crosby to the Baltimore Ravens. At that point, the Bears adjusted their free agency plans, assuming the door was shut. They were right to adapt, no argument there. But then Wednesday rolled around, and the Ravens, out of nowhere, backed out of the deal before it became official. All of a sudden, Crosby was back on the table. That is where the chaos started for Chicago. That Friday, Adam Schefter from ESPN, the insider who always has the freshest info in the NFL, went on air and flat out said the Bears did not have the cash to pull off that kind of move. Said word for word that it was fantasy to think Chicago could afford roughly $35.5 million per year for Crosby's contract. The exact phrasing was that the Bears were basically broke for that kind of move and simply could not pay it. When that hit, it felt like the floor moved underfoot. Schefter does not talk just to talk. That insider has sources in every building in the league, but then the next day, Saturday, David Kaplan from ESPN 1000 here in Chicago tried to calm things down. Kaplan said there were calls made and that what Schefter described as being broke was actually a specific reference to the salary cap situation at that exact moment. And then came the line that flipped the whole conversation. If Ryan Poles wants to go get Crosby, Chicago has what is needed to do it. So that leads to the real question, and it is a critical one for understanding where the Bears are headed this offseason. According to Over the Cap, Chicago has a little over $1,400,000 in cap space after the first wave of free agency, and there still has to be space carved out for the draft class. With that picture on the table, does it really make sense to dump everything into Crosby's salary? It feels like Poles has to make some surgical moves before Crosby can even be a serious topic. Restructure contracts, make a few strategic cuts, free up space. That is not impossible. Teams do it all the time. The Packers reworked 3 contracts in a single week last year to sign a safety. There is no reason the Bears cannot do the same. But when Poles was asked straight up if the Bears had real interest in Crosby, the answer raised eyebrows. There was talk about always monitoring every situation, checking whether it made sense, having some dialogue, and then stopping there, stop there. A general manager with a chance to talk openly about one of the best pass rushers in the league just left it at that. That feels like a deliberate media strategy. Poles does not want to show the hand, does not want the Raiders to know how badly the Bears want Crosby, because the second any desperation shows up in a negotiation, the price shoots up. And if Crosby never comes here, there is another name on the market that might actually be the smarter play for the Bears right now. That is Josh Sweat, the edge rusher from the Arizona Cardinals. Pay attention to this. On March 9th on the PHNX sports podcast that covers the Cardinals, co-host Johnny Venerable dropped a bomb. There was a report that Sweat asked for a trade, literally asked out after head coach Jonathan Gannon was fired. Venerable did mention that maybe things settled a bit with new defensive coordinator Nick Rallis, but the fact that Sweat put in a trade request is info the folks at Halas Hall should be keeping front and center. So, What is it about Josh Sweat that makes this a serious option for Chicago? First off, the 2025 season was flat out ridiculous. 30 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 12 sacks. 4 forced fumbles in 17 games. Those 12 sacks put Sweat among the top 8 in the entire NFL. Those 4 forced fumbles tied for second in the league. Those numbers speak for themselves. This is not some average rotational piece. This is an edge rusher right in the middle of a prime window. Second, and this is huge from a cap standpoint, the contract is manageable. Sweat signed a 4-year, $76,400,000 deal in 2025. In 2026, the base salary sits around $9,780,000 with a cap hit of roughly $16,400,000. Stack that up against Crosby's $35.5 million and ask yourself which move is smarter for the Bears right now. Sweat at $16 million against the cap is an absolute steal for that level of production. Third, the scheme fit is clean. Dennis Allen builds defenses around edge pressure out of 4-man fronts. There's a need for defensive ends who can win one-on-one against opposing tackles. Sweat stands 6'5", 265 pounds, and since becoming a full-time starter back in 2021, has recorded at least 6.5 sacks every single year. That is elite-level consistency. Now, here's the most intriguing part. The Bears already have Montez Sweat on the roster. Imagine the headlines in Chicago if Josh Sweat walks into Hollis Hall to line up across from Montez Sweat. 2 Sweats harassing opposing quarterbacks every Sunday at Soldier Field. The Lions do not have that. The Vikings do not have that. The Packers, with all that front office magic and cap gymnastics, do not have that either. Only the Bears could roll out that kind of nightmare for opposing offenses. The price for a Josh Sweat trade is probably at least a second-rounder, maybe a little more. With 4 picks in the first 90 selections of the 2026 draft, the Bears have the ammunition to pull that trigger without gutting the draft class. Poles has a decision to make. Go all in for Crosby, the flashier, more expensive move with more uncertainty because of recent health issues, or go after Sweat, the smarter, cheaper, and potentially longer-term piece for the future of this defense. This city has been waiting way too long for a pass rush that truly scares people. The Monsters of the Midway did not get that nickname by rolling out a soft defense. That defensive tradition built by Urlacher, Peppers and Hicks deserves to be honored with bold decisions, and Poles has a chance right now to honor it. But that is nothing compared to what is coming next. While the Bears are hunting for that next monster off the edge, the offense is right in the middle of one of the most talked about mock drafts of the week. CBS Sports has a projection in the first round that is going to start a serious conversation among Bears fans. Wait until you see this. News 2. All right, the pass rush and what this defense needs has been covered. Now it is time to flip to the offense because the 2026 draft is coming up and there are decisions Poles has to make in the next few weeks that will shape this team for the next 3 or 4 years. There is a mock draft from CBS Sports this week that has everybody talking. Josh Edwards over at CBS Sports dropped a 3-round mock after the first week of free agency with the 25th overall pick. The Bears take Omar Cooper Jr., the wide receiver from the Indiana Hoosiers. Think back to the first reaction when that name came up. Most fans probably raised an eyebrow, rightfully so. Here is the background on Cooper Jr. Before any take comes in, the 2025 season at Indiana was absolutely phenomenal. 69 catches, 937 yards, an average of 13.6 yards per catch, 13 touchdowns, and the key detail, all of that while playing for the team that won the national title in college football in 2025. That is not some throwaway line. Producing on that stage under playoff pressure with the entire country watching says a lot about a young player's mentality. Edwards' reasoning is interesting. The argument is that Ben Johnson, the Bears head coach, wants to fully trust whatever trio of receivers is on the field at any point in a game. Luther Burden III started to pop late last season, which is encouraging, but Edwards argues that Chicago is not going to leave anything to chance while trying to prove last season was not a one-off. Then comes a point that really stands out. Imagine the possibilities with Johnson pulling the strings with even more talent on the outside. That logic makes sense, but there is a fundamental question that has to be asked. The Bears already have Rome Odunze, a legit WR1 type receiver. There is Luther Burden III, who is clearly turning into a real weapon, and DJ Moore just left in that trade with Buffalo, which did leave a real hole at wide receiver. If Cooper Jr. comes in at 25 and joins that room, Caleb Williams instantly becomes one of the quarterbacks with the most loaded receiver group in the entire NFC North. That is a huge edge. The pushback, though, is obvious. Is it really the smartest move to use the 25th pick on a wide receiver when there are major needs on the other side of the ball, especially on defense? That is a fair point. And if the Bears are going to use resources to upgrade the pass rush with a trade, either for Crosby or Sweat, then maybe it does make sense to use that first rounder on offense instead of spending even more capital on defense. There is also a powerful angle Edwards brings up directly. The Bears hold 4 picks in the top 90. That means there is enough ammo to attack multiple position groups. Draft Cooper Jr. at 25, and there is still plenty of capital to go after the defensive line, the linebackers, or the secondary in later rounds. It feels like Poles is playing a multi-move chess game that most fans cannot fully see yet from the outside. Remember, too, Cooper Jr. would be arriving to fill the void left by the DJ Moore trade to Buffalo. Think back on how much Moore meant to this offense last year. Moore was the safety blanket for Caleb Williams when things got tight. 3rd and long, money down, that was usually the first read. Losing that piece created a gap that has to be filled one way or another. If Cooper Jr. can slide into that role, then using that pick on a receiver makes complete sense. Ben Johnson is a top-tier offensive mind, took what was built in Detroit with Jared Goff and pushed it to another level. Now Johnson has Caleb Williams with the arm talent and processing to run any scheme this staff wants. If Johnson is saying more top-end talent and depth at receiver are needed for this offense to truly hit its ceiling, there is reason to trust that. This is not the type of coach who just throws stuff out there. To be straight about it, not everyone is on board with this projection. Some analysts believe the Bears should use 25 on a defensive end, an offensive lineman, or even a tight end who can give Williams another option up the seam. Those takes are valid. The main point, though, is that Poles has options. There is flexibility, and how that flexibility is used in the coming months is going to say a lot about the long-term vision for this roster. The Packers have Jordan Love and have been building around that quarterback with draft picks. The Vikings did the same thing with J.J. McCarthy. The Lions built that offense step by step before Amon-Ra St. Brown turned into the star seen today. The Bears have that same opportunity with Caleb Williams. And if Cooper Jr. is the next piece in that puzzle, then let Cincinnati Avenue roll out the welcome and let that receiver prove why there was a spot on a national champ. Bear down, Chicago. This team is building something real. The 2026 draft might be the moment this whole thing takes a huge leap forward. And just when it seemed like everything was wrapped up, there is something that really cannot be ignored. While the Bears are talking about bringing in new pieces, one just walked out the door, and that exit leaves a hole that is not as small as some people think. Stay locked in because this is going to bring out some strong opinions. News 3, this update does not come in with trumpets. There is no celebration. It shows up with a question that popped up first thing in the morning when the report hit social media and still has not gone away. Why did the Chicago Bears let Devin Duvernay walk? Sunday morning, reporter Jordan Schultz posted on X that Duvernay, the wide receiver and return specialist who spent the 2025 season with the Bears, signed a 1-year, $2.5 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. The agent working the deal was Eric Burkhart from Rock Nation Sports. Just like that, no drama, no big send-off. One of the best return men this franchise has seen in years is headed to Arizona. Think about what is leaving with Duvernay. This was not a 70-catch, 1,000-yard receiver. That part is clear. In 2025, Duvernay caught only 2 passes for 26 yards in Chicago's offense. That was not the job, but on special teams, every single time that ball hit the hands, there was a legit threat. There were 1,300 total yards on kick and punt returns last season. That is field position. That is the kind of impact that does not always show up in highlight clips, but absolutely swings games. Here's a little more background on who Duvernay really is. There was a 3rd-round selection in the 2020 draft by the Baltimore Ravens. Right away, the return ability jumped off the screen. In 2021, Duvernay earned a first Pro Bowl nod and a first-team All-Pro slot as a returner. That happened by averaging 13.8 yards per punt return. The best number in the entire league that year and 24.1 yards per kickoff return. That is big-time special teams production. A second Pro Bowl came in 2022. Then there was an exit from Baltimore after the 2023 season, a stop with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and eventually Chicago. With the Bears, the role was crystal clear. Be that special teams weapon that flips field position. The job got done, yet Duvernay is gone. There is a part of this that fans deserve to understand clearly. The Bears decided to bring in Khalif Raymond in free agency. Raymond is an experienced punt returner with a long NFL resume, and Poles clearly sees that veteran as Duvernay's replacement in that specific role. On paper, that lines up, no real argument there, but the question has to be asked, and it comes with respect for Poles because there is belief in the idea that there is a smart general manager in place. Raymond has not been used as a regular kickoff returner in recent seasons, so who's going to be handling kick returns for the Bears in 2026? The names in the mix right now are cornerback Josh Blackwell, Rome Odunze, and Luther Burden III, three players who already have important roles on offense or defense and might now be asked to shoulder extra special teams duties. That is not the ideal setup. A team that wants to actually chase the NFC North crown cannot afford patchwork answers on special teams. Field position decides games that end with a field goal. To be fair, this is not just about one player filling the Duvernay role. The Bears are talking about a shared return system based on situation and matchup. There's also talent available in the draft that could fill that specialist role if Poles decides to use a late pick on a special teams ace. That would not be a crazy move, but there is still a concern that cannot be ignored. The message sent when players like Duvernay walk away at the start of an offseason matters. First, Keenan Allen walked away into retirement. Then the DJ Moore trade to Buffalo happened. Now, Duvernay is headed to Arizona on a $2.5 million deal. That is not a huge number. The Bears easily could have matched that. So the question is whether the front office made a conscious decision to let Duvernay go because a plan B is fully ready to roll, or if the value Duvernay brought to this roster was simply not fully recognized. Put it in perspective, the Arizona Cardinals, the team that just signed Duvernay, are in rebuild mode. That franchise is hunting for weapons to improve special teams while the rest of the roster is being rebuilt. If a team that is clearly behind the Bears right now in the NFC standings sees enough value in Duvernay to lock that deal in right away, that should make a lot of people at Halas Hall stop and think. There is real belief the Bears will be fine on special teams in 2026. There is belief Poles has a plan and that Raymond could be an effective punt returner. But there is also the very real possibility that Duvernay's exit becomes one of those little details that comes back to haunt this team at a critical point in the season. A game lost on field position, a muffed punt because there was no one back there with Duvernay's feel for tracking and attacking the ball. Those moments happen, and in an NFC North where the Lions, Vikings, and Packers are all going full throttle, every yard of field position matters. This city has taken enough hits in recent years. From the Trubisky era through the rebuilding years, Chicago fans have stayed patient. Now that it looks like the team is finally coming out of the tunnel with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, there is no room for letting details slide. Not with the pass rush, not in the draft, not on special teams. Every part matters. Every piece of the puzzle matters. Poles has the responsibility to make sure none of the pieces that powered the step forward in 2025 are just lost without a proper replacement. That includes Duvernay. If Raymond, Blackwell, and the rest of the group cannot match that impact, the pressure on the front office is going to skyrocket, and that pressure will be deserved because this city, this fan base, Da Bears, deserves a complete team, not a roster with glaring holes. All right, Chicago, that is the end of this video, and before heading out, there is something that needs to be done. But first, there is a need to hear from you because your takes are what make this channel worth the grind. First question, and this is the one that has been bouncing around all day. Should Ryan Poles go after Josh Sweat in a trade with the Arizona Cardinals? Or is it better for the Bears to sit tight and see if Max Crosby becomes available under better conditions? Drop the answer in the comments right now. Sweat or Crosby? One choice. Let that debate blow up down there. Second question, CBS Sports has Omar Cooper Jr. at pick 25 for the Bears. If that selection actually happens on draft night, would Chicago be making the right move by beefing up Caleb Williams' receiver group? Or is it better for Poles to use that pick on defense? Let it be known down below which position needs that first rounder the most. Third question, Devin Duvernay heading to the Arizona Cardinals on a $2.5 million deal. A number the Bears could have easily paid. Does that move worry you? For the 2026 Special Teams unit, is Khalif Raymond plus Josh Blackwell enough to replace that impact? Or did Poles make a mistake letting Duvernay walk? That debate needs to show up in the comments too. Here's the deal. This channel exists because you, the fans of Da Bears, deserve a place where this team is talked about with passion, real knowledge, and honesty. This is not about coming on here to say only what people want to hear. This is about saying what needs to be said, and that only works because you keep showing up, video after video, sharing your opinions and your love for this team. If there is still no subscription to this channel, this is the moment. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the little bell so no Bears news slips through, because there is a guarantee that the next few days are going to bring more polls, moves, more draft updates, and more breakdowns you're not getting anywhere else in Spanish. This channel is a family that bleeds navy blue and orange, that has taken the losses on the chin and is going to celebrate the wins with all the energy of Chi-Town. You are part of that family. Bear down, Chicago. See you in the next video. Take care.